Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today is the combined disappearance day of both Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit. Is there going to be a Hindi translation or I just speak English?
It's just English, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, very good. The portrait that you see a photograph of is a classic way in which Bhaktivinoda Thakur showed books on his lap, japa beads on his other hand, very prominently displaying his kuntimala, and with a nice big beard and hair because he normally kept shaved face and head. But during the Kartik month, the 4 months of Kartik, he refrained from shaving and other austerities. And that's why we see the big beard. And we'll see many other photographs of him that are not like that. On the right-hand side, it shows the disappearance date. Obviously, we're in the month of July, so the calendar for Vedic calculation is both solar and lunar. Thus, the date is not a solar date. It's the indication of the departure date is a solar date. But we're observing his disappearance day today because of the Vedic calendar. And we see on the other side the date of his appearance in this world. Very significant event and very significant, most significant person. We'll hear as we go further. The deities that were worshipped by Bhaktivinoda Thakur are pictured here. These are Gaura Gadadhar deities. Our founder Acharya had us worship Gaur Nitai deities. The Gaur Nitai deities inspiring or prompting our outreach, that the missionary activity of the Hare Krishna movement. And distinct, certainly Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very involved in missionary work all over the world, and you'll see as we go forward. But internally, he had a very fond affinity for relationship with Krishna in an intimate way, specifically in terms of Radha Krishna. One of the names of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Gadadhar Prananath. Bhaktisiddhanta explained the meaning in this way: the life and soul of Gadadhar Pandit, pure devotees who wish to enter into the Madhura rasa of worship to Radha Govinda take shelter of Gadadhar Pandit and are known as Gauranga Mahaprabhu's intimate devotees. So, as this is a teaching given by Bhaktisiddhanta, certainly Bhaktivinoda Thakur knew the same teaching, and thus we find his affinity for Gaur Gadadhar, or there's you see at the bottom, there's two documents you can look at. One is specifically Bhaktivinoda Thakur identifying his spiritual form in Krishna's Leela as Kamala Manjari. Very elevated Vaishnava. He understood his role externally, and he understood his mood internally, and he details it in these two documents you can look at later. One is titled Kamala Manjari, another is from songs, the Gita Mala reference. There's songs in which he explicitly identifies his name as Kamala Manjari. Pretty elevated position. Here's one of those references in the Siddha Lalasa section of Gita Mala. He writes in the song, "This maidservant has a complexion just like lightning, and she is wearing a sari, which has star-like decorations all over it. My name's Kamala Manjari, eternally appearing to be only 12 and a half years of age. I always live within the abode of Swananda Sukhada Kunj." We'll see photographs later that Swananda Sukhada Kunj is a place where he resided in Navadvip area. It was from this place, Swananda Sukhada Kunj, that he immersed himself deeply, deeply, deeply in the mood of Kamala Manjari and the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, which are a big part of his writings. We'll see their place in a short while. Here's a artist's depiction of his deities. Gadai Gauranga, Gauranga, of course, meaning Lord Chaitanya, who on our left has the mudra of one raised finger. He's teaching the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Gadai, that's on our right side, he's offering the mudra of benediction giving, blessings giving. That's the mood of Gadai or Gadadhar in his Gaura Gadadhar or Gadai Gauranga worship. Here's another photograph. During the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, photography was just getting underway. Rather than describing, the procedure of how they made a flash, but it was, very primitive, and compared to modern flash cameras, he has a different mustache. The reason I don't know why that mustache was there in the way that it's here, but notice carefully on his chest, the breast part of the jacket that he's wearing as a pocket watch. At least that's what it was called at the time. Now, as cameras, also watches were just becoming fashionable, and he had one. He didn't have a wristwatch, but he had a pocket watch. And with the pocket watch, he was able to accomplish many, many things in the course of the day in a very regulated fashion. He was very punctual. One of the ways in which the British government officers honored him was his punctuality in everything that he did. And this pocket watch was one of the facilities that helped him remain very regulated. He had deep affinity for worldly responsibility, and also he had some mystical powers. One is an example pictured here. There was a place where it was said that there was a ghost residing within a tree, and persons will come and worship the ghost in the tree, and people were spooked. They were nervous. They were in anxiety. And so he had a perfect remedy. The perfect remedy was he requested a Brahmana to sit underneath the tree and for 30 days, all day long, simply read Srimad Bhagavatam aloud. And the sound vibration at the end of the 30 days, the tree fell over. The ghost made a sound, a shrieking sound as he escaped the tree, and basically said, Hari Bol, thank you for liberating me from this tree. Very amazing personality. There's another document which you have a copy of, and I'll give a little summary. There was a fellow in Puri who was named Bhishikasen. And as you can see, he had long hair, and he was part of a Appa Sampradaya group. In the document that you have, it gives details of what this group is or was. Ati Badi was a group. During the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as you may very well know, he wrote a book or a little pamphlet on the 13 Appa Sampradayas that were prominent in India at the time. And he was part of one of them, and he was a mystic. And along with his mysticism, he engaged in austerities. And with those austerities and mysticism, he became very powerful and popular. One of the things that he did, he resided in a grove of trees outside of Puri, and because of his mysticism and charisma and so forth, he had many followers, like thousands of followers. And amongst his followers were some of the privileged ladies in Jagannath Puri, and they were his favorites, and he was their favorite. And he claimed explicitly that he was Mahavishnu, Bhagavan Mahavishnu. And he had two associates, and the two associates were claimed to be avatars of Mahavishnu. And one of the things that he did that was very disturbing was when the ladies would come to hear him and, take his association, he would pollute them, entice them, and they became a subject of a problem. So you'll read in this document what happened. This came to the attention of Bhaktivinoda Thakur as a magistrate. So he wanted to bring this before the court. So he requested some police people to go bring him to court. And they were afraid. And so there's details of how that happened. But finally, he agreed, Bhishikasen agreed with the statement, this is my Leela. So he came to court. And many, many, many things happened. But Rupa Vilas Prabhu, one of Prabhupada's disciples, wrote a book on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life. And the seventh Goswami, it was the title of the book. And the Bhishikasen, while waiting for trial, was engaged in austerities in the prison, and he was fasting, and he gave curses, such a curse that the daughter Bhaktivinoda Thakur became very, very ill. His wife, Bhagavati, pleaded with her husband, release this man. The life of our daughter is in peril, and he didn't yield, etc., 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 etc. He was convicted, and as he was being taken from the courtroom, there's different descriptions, but he had this ability when he shook his hair, fire would come from his hair. And everyone, when they saw the fire coming from his hair, they backed off. He was able to scare people. Fortunately, there was one British soldier that had a big pair of scissors, and they cut his hair as he was leaving the courtroom, and he fell to the ground unconscious. And that was a deterrent for his followers, thinking he's not Mahavishnu, he's just a fellow with mystic powers. No, mystic powers for sure. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur ended up writing a letter, which was later published in publications by Bhaktisiddhanta, indicating to the police of a nearby area what the Ati Badi Sampradaya, Apa Sampradaya folks are, and they're dangerous, and beware. And you're the police. It's your responsibility to give protection to citizens, etc. It's a very interesting article, several pages long, but if you read it, you'll find it an indication of the fearlessness of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's just in dealing with worldly affairs, but he was that type of person that when he saw deviation, he confronted it in his own way, differently than as a son would confront deviation. And here's another example. In 1874, as he was overseeing the affairs of the Jagannath Temple, he found that there was, you could say, it was a theft. It was misappropriation of funds from the temple by the Raja, the king. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave a penalty, found him guilty, and said, you have to sponsor the Sunday feast, or you sponsor the Bhoga offerings 52 times per day until the debt is cleared, which is not a punishment, it's an honor. But the king was insulted, his honor was insulted, so he organized a 50 Pandit sacrifice chanting mantras for 30 days with the explicit sankalpa that Bhaktivinoda Thakur would be killed. And this was going on. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur knew what was going on, and he did nothing about what was going on. And unfortunately for the king, at the end of the 30 days, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was protected by his bhakti power, by Krishna himself, instead, when dark black magic incantations are sent to harm someone, it's got to go somewhere. So when it didn't harm Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it came back, and the king's son was killed or died. And then the king understood 2 + 2 = 4. So he came to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and explained what he had done. Bhaktivinoda Thakur just listened. He knew exactly what was going on. He offered his apology, profuse apology, and understood the integrity and the fearlessness and the power of his underling, the chief magistrate is under the king. But chief magistrate was more powerful than the king. Then there was another issue. This is on the negative side. There was another celebrated Babaji in Puri, whose name was Raghunath Das Babaji. This isn't a photograph of him. It's just a Babaji photograph from the internet. And during his time, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home was very near to the Jagannath Ballam Gardens. We know about the Jagannath Ballam Gardens because that's a place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his interaction with the king, and the king got the favor of Lord Jagannath, Lord Chaitanya in that place. There was a place where halfway through the kirtan, because the kirtan was going and going and going and so ecstatic, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and lie to take some rest in the Jagannath Ballam Gardens. So it was that place, sacred place, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur held a daily Bhagavatam class. The Bhagavatam class, it was given the name Bhagavata Sangsat. And it was all very nice, except this Raghunath Das Babaji didn't like the idea that here's a fellow who doesn't wear tilak and doesn't have neck beads is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and he has a lot of followers, a lot of people hearing from him. And so he spoke badly about Bhaktivinoda and discouraged people from attending his classes. That was a mistake. That was an offense to a pure devotee. And as a result, Raghunath Das Babaji contracted a very serious fever and disease. He became practically delirious. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur found out that this was his condition, Lord Jagannath, Bhaktivinoda wanted to do something. So Lord Jagannath appeared to the Babaji in a dream and instructed him, you offended Bhaktivinoda, that's why you're having this serious illness. If you want to not die with certain death, you go to Bhaktivinoda and offer your profuse apology and beg his forgiveness. Jagannath instructed the Babaji. Pretty mystical. And so the Babaji somehow made it to the place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur was residing, offered his apology, explained what was going on. Bhaktivinoda Thakur just smiled and said, I knew all along what was going on, and you have my full forgiveness, and gave him some medicine that would cure his fever. Now here's another Babaji. As you can see, Babajis were popular at that time. And his name, he is a favorable Babaji. His name was Swarup Das Babaji. And he had a bhajan kutir place near the Tota Gopinath temple. And he made his residence near the bhajan kutir of Sanatana Goswami. As you may know, Sanatana Goswami spent some stretch of time in Puri, in Lord Chaitanya's association, and where he stayed is where Swarup Das Babaji also stayed, near Tota Gopinath temple. And this celebrated person really liked Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He understood properly the profound spiritual qualification, and his favorite teaching was this one, Krishna Nama Bhuli Bhe. Never forget the name of Krishna. So he particularly was partial in favor of Bhaktivinoda Thakur during the time that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the magistrate there. There's one more document that you can look at later, and it's a very fascinating description coming from the book about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his letters and his sayings and writings and so forth, all bound in a printed book. And in this text, and there's other references you'll find in your attached files, there was a circumstance where Bhaktivinoda Thakur was traveling in the celestial realm, And there was a debate, not a debate, there was a discussion with 4 of the Mahajans and others. That means Yamaraj, Narada Muni, Lord Brahma, and one other great personality. They were discussing the 2 verses of Bhagavad Gita, starting with the Apichet Sudaracharo. And the discussion went something like this. The details you can read. In this verse, the debate was, or the discussion was, it seems that Krishna is saying he quickly becomes virtuous when in the earlier part of the verse it says that he is the Apichet Sudarajaro Bhajate Mam Ananyabhak. He's an undivided devotee. So how is it that Krishna is saying the undivided devotee becomes virtuous? He was already virtuous because he's an undivided devotee. The virtue is already a subset of his undivided devotion. So they were having this discussion. And while they were having this discussion, Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared, and they honored him, rising, standing, as you honor a great personality, presented to him the question that they were discussing, and he gave a very simple answer. The very simple answer was, the one who becomes virtuous is not the one who's already the Ananya Bhakta, but the one who's observing the behavior of the Ananya Bhakta, who thinks someone may think there's some discrepancy, but this individual doesn't see discrepancy because he's an undivided devotee. That observer quickly becomes virtuous. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. And they were all satisfied. So this tells us, Bhaktisiddhanta, it is said, narrated this event in multiple occasions in public forums. So it wasn't like a private, confidential glory of Bhaktisiddhanta, of Bhaktivinoda, excuse me. He publicized it or propagated it. So it's to understand how super exalted. Again, the 7th Goswami, and in addition, there's 12 Mahajans, and he's honored by the 4 of the 12 Mahajans. He, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is a super elevated personality, otherworldly personality, clearly otherworldly personality. And yet he's living in the world, living as a householder, performing a profession that a worldly person might do. You can see he's a dapper dresser. He has different, you could say, costumes or ways of appearing in the public so that prestige that goes to a worldly person would be naturally honored, extended to him. There's another nice chair, a nice fancy hat, and seated for a pose of a photographer, because again, photography was just becoming fashionable. And along with everything else that he did, he had 10 children. And one of those 10, and just to his left, to our right, that's Bhagavati, his wife. And there's a photograph, very clear photograph, of Bhaktivinoda with his son, Bhaktisiddhanta. And here's another photograph where the 2 of them are there, where Bhaktisiddhanta is at 13 years of age. There's a lot to say about Bhaktisiddhanta and his super qualification, but Bhaktisiddhanta was a pure devotee, as the son of a pure devotee. Here's the same photograph as where we started. It's just, it's in color and it's a little more clear. and the books and his japa beads and his kuntimala and the same marks that when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was posing for photographs, he often displayed prominently. He didn't hide his existence as a Vaishnava. One of the greatest epic writings is pictured here, the cover picture of Jaiva Dharma. The translation is the religion of all souls. You see the date, it's the same date as Prabhupada's birth date, the same year that another book was written. We'll see that other book shortly. But Jaiva Dharma was basically a retelling of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and rather than making commentary, he wrote a parallel book that he called Jaiva Dharma. And in this book, it's a discussion. The format is questions and answers, and it's as if it's a fiction story. There are these two young fellows who are from Calcutta. They decide to make a pilgrimage to Navadvip because they heard much about Navadvip. So they went, and in the course of their going to the holy places in Navadvip, they met one Babaji. Doesn't give his name, it's just he called Babaji Maharaj. And then the two students, in their discussions with Babaji Maharaj, they ask questions, and the answers to Babaji Maharaj provides the subject matter of Jaiva Dharma, and it's a retelling of the life and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's very delicate, very refined, elevated exposition on Chaitanya Charitamrita without making it in the format of a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's very creative. He was a prolific writer. One of those writings was reprinted, again, is 1896. He had from his own pocket paid a printer and sent this book, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts, all over the world to different universities. His intention was everyone, this is the missionary spirit of Bhaktivinoda, everyone in the world, at least the educated people in the world, should know who is Lord Chaitanya and what his teachings are. So the book has these two parts: his life, it's a retelling of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and his precepts is his Bhaktivinoda Thakur's classic which he called Dasa Mula. Dasa means 10, Mula means root, Dasa Mula Tattva, the 10 essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he listed them, and then he gave explanations for each of the 10, and that was the precepts part. In his own English, it wasn't a translation later. It was sent to universities in the world in his own English. So it's very clear. There's nothing lost in the translation of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing. Though that book, or copies and digital copies of that book, were made available. This is a reprint, as you see on the screen. There's a downloadable copy of the reprint, a PDF version, and this is one of the reprints over many, many times. Important book of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, 1896. In 1901, one of the additional books he wrote is called Bhagavat Arka Marichimala. And the cover painting depicts what happened. At the end of the book, there's a addendum in which Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains what you see in the picture. Said normally, he writes, normally one would not disclose these things, but I feel compelled to do so. Here's the origin of this book. Swarup Damodar appeared to me in a vision. Wasn't a dream. He appeared to me in a vision. And he instructed me to write this book. And he gave detailed explanations of what should go in the book. What the book is the, not by verse, but topics of the Bhagavatam, and then citing various verses under each topic of the Bhagavatam. And he writes in the conclusion, Swarup Damodar gave a detailed commentary on the first Bhagavatam 111, and that's in the book. Disciplic succession from Swarup Damodar directly to Bhaktivinoda Thakura to the book, and then to us. 1901. I hope you get the picture. Bhaktivinoda Thakura is not an ordinary writer or Vaishnava. He's a Vaishnava and he's a writer, but he's extraordinary personality. Another one of the books he wrote was an autobiography, the Swadhikita Jivani. So in this book, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, describes his life, where he accepted Diksha later in his life from Bipin Bihari. He describes he was searching for Guru, but when he found someone scratching a little deeper into what his teachings and his behaviors were, he couldn't find a Guru. Finally, he accepted Bipin Bihari Goswami. Bipin Bihari Goswami was in a line of Janava, or the Nityananda Vamsa line, and he had some different practices, Siddha Pranali, chanting, and other things that Bhaktisiddhanta took objection to. But in any case, Bipin Bihari was the person who he accepted mantra diksha from, and then shortly thereafter, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, found the Shiksha Guru of his life, the one who he gave full shelter. He took full shelter, and he maintained respect for Bipin Bihari, in formality at least, and in his heart of hearts, Jagannath Das Babaji was the one who he took as being the preeminent personality, and you find this disciplic succession. We don't find Bipin Bihari, we find Jagannath Das Babaji, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So from this Swananda Sukha Kunj place, he saw a light in a distance because he was a government officer. He had access to government records, and according to those government records, went back and back and back and back in time, and it showed, as well as the histories of the place and the location, after Lord Chaitanya's departure, as happens with rivers, the course of the Ganges shifted. And the result of the course of the Ganges shifting was that the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was now under the Ganges, because the course of the Ganges shifted. And then later it shifted back to where it was previously. And so he, from the rooftop of Swananda Sukha Kunj, or the Dharmi Ranshala, he saw a light on the other side of the Ganges River, tall in the air, rising. And he saw it night after night, and he showed that same light to others. So it wasn't just hallucination. And he, together with the histories of geography of the place, which he got from government access maps and histories and so forth. He put two and two together. He took by material standards and spiritual standards. He accepted that this light was the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. It marked the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. Now, it was a big problem because Navadvip was a newly developed city. And when you go to Navadvip, you can see it's the city, and with big buildings and this and that. But it was newly developed much after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. So people were accepting, the public was accepting the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Navadvip when it's a new city and other things and other things. So he took Jagannath Das Babaji. He had, at this time, he lived till he was 140. And his posture wasn't normal. It was like, as you see, that's a photograph. And then this is a painting of that photograph. And he was a Babaji. He was engaged in chanting of the holy name. And this Babaji, Jagannath Das Babaji, had a servant. His name was Ishan. So Ishan had a practice. In fact, Ishan brought Jagannath Das Babaji all the way from Vrindavan to Navadvip in a basket. So he brought him in a basket to the place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw this light, and Jagannath Das Babaji jumped out of the basket and started calling out loudly, "This is it, this is it, this is the birthplace of Mahaprabhu," because he had spiritual acumen. So we have multiple evidences. This is the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. Again, showing the fearlessness of Bhaktivinoda. He went into Navadvip personally, door to door, asking for a rupee, 1 rupee, from every gentleman who will give a donation to establish the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, please understand, he was risking his life because there were persons whose economy and prestige, both, were best rested upon, that's not the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's over here in Navadvip. So he wasn't confronting them, but he was confronting them. He was risking his life. And in the course of time, he built what you see, this pink building, a temporary structure that was a place for Lord Chaitanya's birthplace, Jagannath Mishra's home, etc., etc. Later, he requested Bhaktisiddhanta to construct a proper temple. So that white structure with the tall domes, etc., that's Bhaktisiddhanta's work under the order of his father. And when they were digging into the ground to build the foundation for this tall temple, lo and behold, they found the deity of Jagannath Mishra in the mud. That is to say, when the Ganges shifted, so did the mud accumulate on top of the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. And then later, when the Ganges shifted back and he's making the foundation, they found the deity, the 4-armed Vishnu form of Jagannath Mishra in the mud. So now here's a final archaeological evidence that this, in fact, is the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. The deity of Jagannath Mishra is now on the altar at the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. And of course, our founder, Acharya, took it one step further. In the area of the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, he envisioned, and soon it will open, the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, with a few decades of work to establish a structure inside the dome of the Temple of Vedic Planetarium that will depict structure of the universe according to the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been a major, 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 major undertaking because scholars from all over the world will come to look, and we know how scholars are. They want to find fault and say this isn't right and it should be like that and those kinds of things. So they have to be very precise with not only what the Bhagavatam says, but, just recognize what other people are going to say. We mentioned earlier Svananda Sukha Kunj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentioned, and I'm going to show you some photographs of the place. This was his home for some period of time, and currently it's his samadhi and bhajan kutir, and very proximate to the same place. Gorkishore Das Babaji also has a bhajan kutir, and this is in the island. There's Nava Dvipa. There's 9 islands. This is the island of Godruma Dweep, just across the river from the appearance place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Here's a statement from Gitamala, this book that you heard about already. My small cottage is shining beautifully within that most enchanting garden called Svananda Sukha Kunj. Living there, I will sing Lord Krishna's holy name, and I will greedily hanker for that time when I will get the servants of him and his associates. It's in this Gita Mala where he identifies his spiritual identity as Kamala Manjari, one of the places where he identifies his spiritual identity. Here's the front gate of Swananda Sukha Kunj. Let's go inside. We see inside, it says his Bhajan Kutir. That's the big sign across the top of the doorway. And inside, there's the Samadhi of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There's a Murti. You can see what time it was when this photograph was taken. And here's a close-up of his Murti in Svananda Sukha Kunj. And here is his personal servant of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also has a nice little place. Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj has a little samadhi along with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Here are his Gora Gadadhar deities, the ones he actually worshipped at Swananda Sukha Kunj. Here's a close-up. You can see the mudra situation of the hands of Gora Gadadhar, just as we saw before. And here's another close-up of Gora Gadadhar. When we visit Mayapur for a pilgrimage, we'll certainly go to this place, Swananda Sukha Kunj. It's a very holy place, made holy by the presence of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. This was his home. You can see the furniture is quite sparse and simple. And there's several bookcases because he was very fond of books. A place where he would hang his gamsha and other clothing to dry. There's a little table where the people who maintain the place, they want people to give donations. You see the table. The bed where he would lie in the mosquito net. And here's a close-up of the same. And nearby was a place where Bhaktisiddhanta would stay. Here is a fan. At that time, there was no electricity, but they had fans. And the way it powered the fan, I can't recall exactly, but it was like steam. So it was heat, and from the heat of the steam, the fan would turn, and, some relief because in Bengal it can be very, very hot in the summer, hot and humid. So fans were useful. Here's his bookcase, or one of his bookcases, and lying in kind of disarray here and there are his writings and publications, copies of those publications. And here's his personal paraphernalia along with the fan. You see the clay pots. Those are pots that would carry water, and paraphernalia for bathing on the lower shelf, you're using buckets and so forth, and other paraphernalia that he would regularly use, his personal belongings. It was not a cluttered place. Here is a residence of Bhaktisiddhanta when he stayed with his father. There's where he would take rest, and there was a sitting place for him to do his work near his resting place. And they spent time together, the two, father and son. And here's a photograph. As you see, there's a mandir, and inside the mandir, there's a bhajan kutir place for Kishore, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. There's tulsi plants, there's the bhajan kutir place of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. So they had a nice time together, all these three personalities. So that's the celebrated Swananda Sukata Kunj, written extensively about in Gitamala, one of his writings. And here is his bhajan kutir. And there's a nice lady who's helping to maintain the place. The picture should change on its own, but it's not changing. Okay. There are devotees that keep it neat and clean and maintain the place nicely. So when we visit, it's nice to offer respects to these devotees because they're, to this day, very devoted to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Here's a place in this same compound where the Pushpa Samadhis, on the left, Bhaktisiddhanta, in the center, Bhaktivinoda, and on the right, this is one of the followers of Bhaktisiddhanta, who very modestly placed his Pushpa Samadhi there as well. This is a very fancy chair where Bhaktisiddhanta would sometimes sit, and on the right side, we see, his desk and his bed, etc. And this is his walking stick and shoes. Prabhupada followed that example as well. In Puri, there's a temple very near the seaside and very near the Bhajan Kutir and Samadhi of Haridas Thakur, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur resided sometime during his stay in Puri. And the temple is now an ISKCON property. And because it's an ISKCON property, we see Prabhupada on the side, by the side of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's the exact place, the actual place, now in the custody of ISKCON Puri, to look after a sacred place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur spent some time with his writing and his other activities. Here's a nice declaration I'm going to read. In 1908, 3 months before Bhaktivinoda Thakur accepted the renounced order, which was not too long before he left this world, there was a Chief Secretary of Bengal, a British government officer named Sir William Duke, and he expressed as follows: that Thakur's extraordinary abilities as a district magistrate was a threat to British control. I wanted to take you out of office. I thought that if there were many men as qualified as you in Bengal, then the English would have to leave. Sir William Duke expressed this directly to Bhaktivinoda Thakur later. But now he begged Thakur's forgiveness. After hearing Sir William Duke's apology, the Thakur replied, I considered you to be a good friend and well-wisher all along. The Thakur admitted later to being astonished that this man had wanted to do him harm, but he was so pleased by his repentant attitude that he gave him all his blessings. Now, this is taken directly from the biography of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, and here's a concluding image. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur shortly before, or some years before, he departed this world. And an enormous contribution to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his teachings, and his vision to see Krishna consciousness come about all over the world in a very prominent way at a time when there was, 13 Apasampradayas. There was the teachings of Lord Chaitanya were obscured and had to be defended and upheld and propagated and, vigorously, certainly with opposition. Bhaktivinoda Thakur did all these things and were deeply indebted. How can we repay such a debt? Again, here we see his prominent neck beads, Kuntimala, and dedication with deep penetration and wisdom and empowerment to give Krishna Bhakti to the rest of the world. There is a poem that was written on the departure day of Haridas Thakur. You've all heard this one before. He reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die, for when thou art living still and sound, the Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy name around. So we honor on his disappearance day Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this way. And that concludes our little presentation. You see that many features and facets of the courage and bravery and determination and the protection of Krishna given to him time and again. So we can count on it. It's just a reality. You give your life or give yourself to Krishna's service, and Krishna's protection is there, exactly as he promises in Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't mean the body will never deteriorate and become feeble, and you'll leave it. We'll all leave it. That's a guarantee. But the potency of protection of personality of Godhead is certainly demonstrated in contemporary terms, not just a Prahlad Maharaj story or Dhruva Maharaj story or something from the Bhagavatam story. It's contemporary life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Super, super, super powerful personality. And he's inviting us, please come and join the Sankirtan party of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're going to end there. And I see it's now a quarter to, I have another 15, 16 minutes until we're going to have to bring close to this discussion. If there's somebody that would like to raise a question, I think we should do either one of two things. Shamakund, you can read out if someone wants to put a question in the chat box, or alternatively, someone can raise their hand. There's a facility for hand raising with Zoom, and you raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can speak. You unmute yourself and you can speak your question. Chat box is the easiest.
Thank you very much. There are 3 questions already in the chat box.
Okay, go.
Hemasundari Mataji is asking, Guru Maharaj, while hearing about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I was inspired by how fearlessly he carried out his responsibilities without worrying about pleasing everyone, even when he had to take difficult decisions. In my services, I find it very difficult to say no to devotees, even when it is genuinely not possible to fulfill their requests. I worry that they may feel hurt or displeased, and that burden stays in my mind. Sometimes I wonder whether I'm trying to please Guru and Gauranga or simply trying to avoid disappointing people. What can we do to develop the maturity to make difficult decisions in service without becoming emotionally burdened by the fear of displeasing devotees while still remaining humble and caring?
Excellent question. And, an answer to this excellent question is without culture and without spiritual intelligence, it's not possible. So how to become cultured and have sufficient intelligence to discern how to do this and that in the right way and acknowledge the fact that we're less than perfect. Acknowledge that the fact that even if someone is perfect, persons are going to be disappointed. It's just part of life in this world. It's going to happen, whoever you may be. That fact that you're concerned is good. Now, how to the one of the key questions in this presentation was how to not be governed by pleasing others, because the spiritual answer is by pleasing Krishna, others will be pleased, and the immediate response that others may be displeased because you said no. You have to learn the art of how to say no politely or respectfully. And that's a key to pleasing Krishna. I'll say it a different way. In the heart of this devotee or the other devotees, plural, Krishna is in their heart. And they, the devotee or devotees, are moving in the direction, willfully moving in the direction of trying to please Krishna. And you acknowledge that. So you honor them with respect because that is their life. So you respect them for that. So if that mood of respect, it is detected by Krishna if it's there or not there, and Krishna will be pleased. And there will be times when persons, because of your cultured and sincere attempt to not disturb them while saying no, they'll understand. And if they don't understand, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to please Krishna. And the attitude that Krishna should be pleased, or Guru and Krishna should be pleased, is at the heart of how you move forward. And then comes the intelligence or buddhi and culture, how to move in society in a cultured way. So it starts with respect, and respect goes to super soul within the heart of that other person. Not, there's the relationship. The person is not just a super soul. They're an individual, and they have their sensibilities. They have their sensitivities. They have their psychophysical makeup. And so how to say no in a way that's not disturbing the other party. I'm responding to that question. It's going to happen, but make sure that you're try to make sure that your focus is pleasing Guru and Krishna first and foremost. And because Krishna is in the heart of that other person, that is a factor to be considered. But the movement of your heart is that Krishna and Guru should be pleased. Knowing that you're not going to bat 1,000. You're not going to have a perfect connection every time, because the material world is made up of the modes of nature. And sometimes persons will understand your motives, and sometimes persons will not. And that's just the nature of the place. and you bow to material nature and the controller of material nature. And you move forward as best you can with buddhi, with spiritual intelligence, striving to do the right thing in the right way. I like your question. It's a subtle behavior question, social question. Another question?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Vinodini Devi Dasi has a question. We are not pure devotees, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was protected from the curses of the king and Vishaki Singh. As practicing devotees, will the curses by non-devotees or evil eye affect us?
Will we be, the question is, will we be protected since we're not of the level of Bhaktivinoda? Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, if that's up to Krishna. And the way in which Krishna will protect may be different for Bhaktivinoda than you and me. But Krishna's protection is there, and how Krishna will exhibit his protection is up to Krishna. The principle is intact, regardless of how elevated you are. Therefore, I mean, it's like this. The more elevated you become, the more the pushback from material nature will come to you. So proportionate to your progress or elevation in Krishna consciousness, the tests and the challenges will be proportionate. Say it a different way. Krishna will not put you in a circumstance where you cannot take shelter of him. You will always be able to take shelter of him. And where you take shelter of him, his protection is there. That's his promise in Bhagavad Gita. And not only is such an important promise, he has Arjuna promise. So he won't break the word of Arjuna. So his protection will be there. Protection doesn't mean no harm will come. Protection means something else. Ultimately, your shelter in the association of devotees and your devotional service to Krishna, that will be protected. Ultimately, that's the case. Trust it. It's a fact. And one more time, commensurate with your spiritual progress, the tests will be different. You're not likely to encounter Vishika Singh. You're not likely to encounter a king that wants to put you to death. But the tests will be what they are, commensurate with your position. Krishna will protect you. Next.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Mallikarjun Prabhu has a question. Bhaktivinoda Thakur nicely conducted his affairs of spiritual practice, official work, and family life. I have challenged to do all the things at the same time. When I prioritize sadhana, then family time and office work goes to the back burner. When I prioritize work, then other things go to the back burner. Can you please suggest practical ways to perform all the responsibilities together with priority?
Classic question. This question is asked in different ways by different devotees, but it's the same question. And my answer to this type of question is regulation and time management. What that means is, even for people who are very busy, because some of us certainly are very busy, there are multiple duties. I have multiple duties. I don't have the same list as you, but I guarantee you I have multiple duties. So how do you do these multiple duties? It's called time management. And time management means two things. Big rocks first. Maybe you've heard me say this before. Big rocks first means there's a glass jar, and there's over here is a big rock, and over there is smaller rocks, and over there is sand, pebbles, and over there is sand, and they're all going to fit in the glass jar. So the question is, what goes in first? And each of us have to decide what's the big rock. And that's sadhana. So what is sadhana made up of? And there's the short list, and that's what our sadhana is made up of. And we do that every day. And that goes in first into the glass jar. That's a principle of time management. And then the other things that are also to be done. And then the other things that are to be done, there's a time regulation. Prabhupada did it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur did it. Very busy people do it. You can do it. Organize your life in such a way that you identify that I must spend time with my occupation. I must spend time with my family. I must spend time developing my career. I must spend time with, XYZ. And there's blocks of time along with the big rock. And you stay regulated as much as you can. There's always circumstances that come and then become very prominent. And then those the circumstances fade and something else becomes more prominent. So there will be flexibility in your time management structure, but have a baseline and try to stick to the baseline. And by sticking to the baseline, things become more regulated overall in your life. So I call it blocks of time and time management. And, be regular. Be regular. Great personalities that are busy, they're regulated. As we showed this pocket watch thing of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He kept it with him all the time. So our modern way is, we have a cell phone or different ways of reminding ourselves something. Stay regulated in blocks of time, and it'll all fit. Make sure you put the big rock first. Next.
Thank you. Yugala Kishore Prabhu has a question. While doing services, how to keep the focus on pleasing Guru and Krishna?
Well, that's the heart. You orient your heart, and then the detail follows the heart. And the heart is the heart of bhakti. What's the purpose of bhakti? If you don't know the answer, you can give a check the box kind of answer, but it's good to revisit the question. What's the purpose? So when you chant, for example, when you chant tomorrow morning, or for you it is morning. So each morning you begin your day, as you're putting your hand in your bead bag, the thought could register or maybe take a few moments, a minute or two. Why am I doing this? Instead of just become habituated, because if you become habituated, then it becomes a little mechanical and the life of chanting is gone. So ask yourself the question periodically, why am I doing this? And then you can eliminate things that are not purpose driven, and you amplify things that are. So keep Guru and Krishna at the center, because that's at the heart of bhakti. And not just check the box, but put your heart there. And how to put your heart there. Sincerity. Ask the questions again and again and again. Just like, we just finished the 20th year of the Festival of the Holy Name. For 20 years, we've been conducting this exercise. And it's refreshing to do it again and do it again. It doesn't become hackneyed. So if you let your life become hackneyed, that the heart is not in the right place, you're not going to stay focused. It's the heart of bhakti is exactly that. So put your heart in the right place by the method just described. And I'm looking at my clock. The clock says we're supposed to end in 2 minutes. So we'll take one more question and then we're going to move on.
Rajeshwari Mataji from Bahrain is asking this question about the Apichet Sudaracharu verse. She wants to know if this principle of not imposing the standards of worldly morality on a sadhu, is this mandatory to go back to Godhead?
Well, why are you asking that question? The reason I'm asking you why you're asking that question is it's just part of being a sadhu or being qualified to go back to Godhead. We are qualified. The qualified person doesn't look at things through a material lens. The qualified person who is fit to go back to Godhead looks through the spiritual lens. And what do you see? You don't see things in the material lens. You see things as they are. So the question is it necessary to see like that? Yes. But it's not, that's the criterion that the door is locked if you don't have that. It will follow naturally if the heart is in the right place, if the process of bhakti is being followed. And even if there is some discrepancy, you don't see the discrepancy per se. You see the bhakti, in fact. And then that's a qualification. There's so many scriptural examples of this. I'm sure you could list 10 of them. But it's a principle. Consciousness has to be fixed on Krishna to go to Krishna. I think we'll end, if that's okay.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time and association for us. We are very indebted to you.
Okay. And those that may have joined this call and did not receive those 4 documents, you can, let them know who they can contact so you can send them the documents. Because I think it will help to understand the whole presentation better. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah.